the 8th day of Christmas, namely 90s gave to me. 8 words for happy, 7 bombs a ticking, 6 teens a drinking, 5 he-he-he's. 4 free funzos, 3 Corvettes, 2 drinks of sherry, and Pete in a pear tree. All right.
Boom.
Welcome to Namely 90s. Wow. The podcast that takes you back to the time before smartphones, Google, and Y2K. Join your hosts as they relive the pop culture that shaped a generation and the parts that many people wish they could forget. Listen in to the conversation about how the decade defined those who spent their childhood there and how it shaped them as adults. So, turn down the grunge and dial up the internet. Let's get started. It's time for Namely 90s.
That's right. You're listening to Namely 90s. My name's Andrew, and over there's Brandon.
That's me.
You can find us online at namely90s.com or on Instagram at namely90s. You can also find us on, I think it's Bluesky at, it's namely90s.bsky.social is the URL. You can also find us on YouTube, youtube.com/@namely90s. And if you'd like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/namely90s, also with a 90s, and get signed up for a support level. Well, we're making good progress. It is now episode 8 of our, or day 8 of our 4th annual 12 Days of Christmas specials. And we welcome back another return guest, Jamie Fenderson from the 80s and 90s Uncensored. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me again. This is becoming like the only holiday tradition that I'm looking forward to. So I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
I mean, we're happy to have you. It's funny this year. I think like 3/4 of the guests that we've had back have been on previously. So it's becoming more of just we get to check in with our friends and see how they've been doing.
We get to have a podcast holiday, 12 days of podcast holiday party. I even got my hot cocoa here.
Ooh.
I'm feeling the vibe. I'm feeling the holiday vibe.
Love it. I had a boozy hot cocoa last night. There's a bar in town that has like they make everything holiday themed, and they had holiday themed drinks, and I couldn't resist their boozy hot cocoa, which was rum. Was it rum? Rum. No, bourbon and hot chocolate.
There's no chocolate in it. It's just bourbon.
It's just bourbon with whipped cream and marshmallows on top.
I'm drinking something from our favorite local chicken chain, Kent Fried Chicken.
From Kent and Allen in the morning, Star 1.5. But yeah, welcome back, Jamie. Tell our listeners who aren't familiar with you about the 80s and 90s Uncensored.
So it's a podcast that Milo Dennison and I do. It comes out every Monday. It's about 25 minutes of us talking about kind of anything from the 80s and 90s, mostly popular culture, but we get into events. We have guests. Sometimes we compare things like who would win in a cage match, Pee Wee Herman or Ernest P. Worrell, or, who would win in a cage match, Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera, stuff like that. So that's kind of the staple of our thing. I also have a website called the 80s and 90s.com. I write articles and lists for there. And we do movie reviews called the 80s and 90s Overlooked. It's our little YouTube channel where we kind of review movies that are maybe overlooked, maybe under the radar, maybe not as appreciated as they could be from the 80s and 90s. So we're just all about that 80s and 90s action, because we'd rather be in the 80s and 90s than today, I guess. So we just make our own world,
That's fair. And sorry, my brain just got fried.
It's the boozy hot chocolate.
It's the boozy hot chocolate. Why
that'll do it.
Why did I drink that yesterday? Yeah, so you have a whole like multimedia platform for the 80s and 90s brand, I guess.
And it just kind of ended up that way. We got off Twitter. I got off Twitter. I used to be very active on it, but now it's all kind of weird. It's some billionaire made a impulse purchase, and now it's X. Ooh, X.
And then immediately did everything in his power to devalue that purchase, which makes literally like, don't go to him for investment advice.
It's like
Mark
you buy Oreo cookies as an impulse buy, and then you go outside, you throw it on the ground, start stomping on it. Like, what the heck is up with that? But I have something called No Duh, which is it's a little experimental thing where it's like it's my own little Twitter feed with my animated GIFs that I like to do. So every day something pops out on my website on the area called No Duh. So it is kind of multimedia. It didn't start that way. I accosted Milo because I wanted to do some web design practice. So I made this website and then I started writing for it. He already writes for real, but he was like, hey, let's do a podcast. I'm like, what's that? Is that a net used to catch whales? What is that? I didn't even know what a podcast was, right? but now it's been almost 3 years. We've been doing it religiously every week, every Monday. We've released a new episode. So video, audio, we're all about it. It just kind of grew, and I think it's because I don't have anything better to do. So, when you don't have anything to do and you just kind of focus on your little thing, it kind of grows into something bigger, for better or for worse.
Well, and it's fun to see like how the 80s and 90s.com has changed since like you first started out, and like you have like a whole motion background now on the header, and
yeah,
like,
I'm seeing this.
It's because I remember going to it the first year and just seeing the difference between then and now, and yeah, it's a great place to stop by. You can check out the podcast. You can find the No Duh section, articles that you wrote, things that you've just said. Seems to be
and it's my playground for web design. So the cool thing about having an 80s and 90s website is if you have some really wacky, weird web design, it's okay because like the 90s had some really wacky it had some weird web design anyway. But you can I can get away with some of the weird stuff that I do because it's a wacky site about the 80s and 90s. Because if I did this on a legit website, like for a living, my employer might have an issue with all the weird stuff I do on as far as design goes, right?
Right.
But I will say, like, I do like looking back at some of the famous websites, their first versions, like the first version of eBay or Amazon. You can go back and look at that. It's pretty funny. It's like, this looks like trash, but it's the 90s.
I mean, the longest running website from the 90s, I believe, was the Space Jam website until I think they changed it for the LeBron Space Jam in the last year or two, whenever that came out.
And the Heaven's Gate cult has their website still. And it looks pretty much almost just like, at least design wise, like it did back in the 90s. So,
but you're just waiting for like a purple Kool-Aid man to bust through.
Yeah, did they leave one person behind to curate the website? Or
yeah, there are like two members left, and they keep it going.
Oh, that's crazy.
And they still believe that like the other people are up there out in space, and like the away team went to the spaceship or whatever. So
that's terrifying.
I hope that one day my website will still be around long after I'm gone, just kind of hanging out and being weird.
That'd be cool.
I do think it's funny because I work for this. It's kind of a long story. I'm not going to go too far into it, but I work for this company. And if you don't work for the company, people kind of have like a weird vibe about it. And they say it's like a cult. And so they always make this comment like, oh, you drank the Kool-Aid. And it's like, I never really thought about it, but I just want to be, my response should be just like, yeah, nothing funnier than mass suicide, and then just carry on. Like we say it, say it so lightly, in our culture, like not even about my thing, but just like in general. Oh, don't drink the Kool-Aid. Like, yeah, well, I mean, Kool-Aid is a delicious soft drink, and not always laced with poison. So
not always.
And it's maybe it's a little far to equate mass cultish suicide with company culture.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, I was gonna say that. But then you got the Kool-Aid guy, which is like the best.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I love the Kool-Aid guy.
Breaks through the brick wall. Oh yeah. Doesn't he sound like Randy Macho Man Savage
pretty
a little
much.
bit? Like, oh yeah, I'm Kool-Aid guy. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Or oh yeah.
Did we all grow up with that plastic pitcher that you always made the Kool-Aid in? I feel like that was the thing. It had the lid that you put on top and you could twist it. It had the
little button. What the hell was the button for anyway?
Well, that was like those were like the 70s ones, but we just had like the cheapest plastic jug, and on top you could turn the lid and it either had like the kind of like the little
the grates,
and then the other one was like the big pour, you know, and it's just like that it was just made of BPA. It was made of nothing but BPA.
But at some point, it stopped being your childhood Kool-Aid container, and it was then your mom's Crystal Light.
I thought you were gonna say crystal meth.
No, it became like
that's where she
it was just stained with tea on the sides, and it never looked the same again.
Yeah.
Could you imagine? You're like, yeah, I got into Crystal last year. What? Yeah, Crystal Light. You just hold up like a little container.
Drink Crystal Light. Don't do crystal meth.
I'm into
Sponsored by
Coke
Namey
myself.
90s. Yeah. I had a Coke problem when I worked at a Subway.
Cocaine.
Yeah, no.
I mean, if you work at a Subway.
Yeah, I just, and then later on I got into the Mexican stuff, and oh boy.
Does anyone realize that Subway has remained unchanged for nearly 40 years?
They just changed the menu, like in the last year or so.
But it's not different.
But it is. Like,
but it's just not.
But it is.
Kind of like, but it's still the same ingredients, and
they have more ingredients than when I worked there, because we just stopped at one on our way to Vegas and on the way back. So I was looking at these sandwiches and I'm like, I don't know how to make these sandwiches up until like a year or two ago before they had like the refresh.
Okay, the model hasn't really changed. It looks the same. Like,
they changed the logo. Maybe they changed some ingredients.
I feel like when they update the stores, like physically, they update them to be current as of 10 years ago.
The sauces are still the same, but
they're just trying to catch up with like 2013.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. Like in general, it's the same, but like they have like 50 sandwiches now.
I consider Subway a necessary evil.
I think it should just disappear off the face of the earth.
But they're now owned by the company that owns Jimmy John's, which I'm also kind of over Jimmy John's. I know this isn't the sandwich hour, but
I mean, I was a sandwich artist once. Well, actually, I didn't go to school for it, so I was just a sandwich. Wait.
You were...
I worked at a Subway 3 different times.
Sandwich artist, my ass. I hate that term.
You had to pay. You had to pay to go to sandwich artist school.
it's like barber college.
Pretty much. It was in the back of the manual, and they're like, you could become a sandwich artist for $200. I'm like, no.
That was why I'm sorry. That made me so mad. They call them sandwich artists, but yet you're gonna put an underripe, clearly like green tomato on my sandwich. I don't want a crunchy tomato on my sandwich. Get out of here. I would
throw those away.
No, that's some
anytime you're paying for job training. It's a scam,
right?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's all there is to it.
Then you had definitely drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And to bring it full circle, we have fun here.
Yeah,
by not drinking the Kool-Aid. I can't stop saying it.
I like Kool-Aid. I think it's fine. They still make Kool-Aid.
I think so, yeah.
Do people still drink it?
They have the little Kool-Aid droplets you can put in your water now and make it. It's really easy. If you want to flavor your water up, make it kind of Kool-Aid-y. They have these little water droplet thingies now.
If you want to make your water white trashy, it just comes out.
If you want to be economically challenged Caucasian American water, then there you go. You could just kind of drop that in there.
Caucasian American water.
I don't know. I do think it is. Yeah, anyway.
No, I just wanted to say the like Gatorade's still in that format now because they have like the the concentrated Gatorade, and they have their own specific bottle, and then you put the water in there with it's like a Keurig Gatorade.
Oh yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah, no. So I know Kool-Aid still exists because as a gag for the end of our softball summer season, we have like a potluck at the end of every season, and I was like in the store, and I just happened to see. I thought it was a Squeeze It. You know how they had the plastic bottles with the twist off tops. Mm-hmm. I always associated that with Squeeze It, so I grabbed it and put it in there, and not until like halfway through drinking one and kind of gagging because it was fruit punch Kool-Aid instead of cherry Squeeze It, and I was just like, I looked at the label and it said Kool-Aid, and I was like, no, it's a Squeeze It. It's a Squeeze It. It's not a Kool-Aid.
Yeah, Squeeze-Its were epic. I love those things.
Yeah, those are gone.
It's like drinking a soda that your mom put a cigarette in. You're like, well, damn, mom's Marlboro Lights and soda pop.
It just had a distinct look, and then Kool-Aid stole it. And
those rat bastards.
You would take the top and you would chew on it like it was a mouth guard.
I remember those were always on the floor of the garage, like in the summer.
Yes,
just Squeeze It tops were everywhere.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Because we were kids and didn't really feel like throwing stuff away correctly.
And our parents wanted us to get diabetes.
Yes. We're not Gen Y.
We're the diabetes generation.
Which is also the boomers. But yeah.
Or being American in general.
But we're Gen Y, but Jamie, you and Milo are Gen Xers, correct?
Yeah, we're Gen Xers.
So that allows you to have a better purview of the 80s and 90s than, say, two Gen Ys going through.
Well, we were around for the entirety of it.
Yeah.
We're Gen Xers are in. We can get away with like being cynical and snarky because people expect that of us. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of stupid shit people post though. So I still go on Facebook because I'm an honorary Gen Xer. And there's always like things like, we're the last great generation. We played outside till the streetlights came on. Blah, blah, blah. So did we. We were your kids. Like, it's just, it's the most annoying crap I could ever imagine reading. I gotta stay off that Facebook. I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
I don't have Facebook.
Don't.
I don't really do social media. Milo posts our photos, but we don't. That's why I made my own on my website because hey, nobody reads it, but people are talking in their own echo chambers anyway. So I might as well talk into mine.
It's like starting your own MySpace.
I have started unfollowing the people who post those things because I just can't.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't.
I sent you one.
Oh, I saw it.
Yeah.
It made me.
It's making its way onto Instagram now.
Yeah.
So we think Hofspace should make a comeback.
I'm not.
So back in 2008, David Hasselhoff tried to do a launch of his own kind of social media like MySpace kind of thing, and it was called Hofspace. It didn't go anywhere, but we think that maybe the world wasn't ready for Hofspace, and that now that Twitter got weird, Facebook sucks, all this stuff, people are looking for an alternative. So we think David Hasselhoff should try to resurrect Hofspace.
He could do it.
We would totally be his first followers. I would get you guys on board.
I'm down. Send us that invite code.
We could all do Hofspace together. We could like build that up, and he would be happy, and he would hang out with us.
Did you mention this during the Hasselhoff retrospective you did earlier this year?
Yeah, that's what we found out. Like, hey, because we didn't know about it at the time, but we did a David Hassel, and we tend to do research, maybe an unhealthy level of research into our topics.
Oh yeah,
like a little more research than what normal people might do for the
Andrew reads a
subjects.
Wikipedia page.
Yeah, I'm really good
To be
at
fair,
that.
I also do, but I also click on the other subsections.
Yeah.
Did
So
you know
we-
there was a Baywatch Nights, by the way?
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's where we want to do a retrospective about that.
And
It got weird. It was like
season
Night
2 got
Baywatch,
weird because
but because X-Files was kind of popular, so they tried to get X-Files-y on it.
yeah,
So
they're like
they'd
looking
have-
for Sasquatch on the beach. You know?
Yeah. It got
Classic.
It's worthy. It's worthy of a retrospective.
That's too funny.
Well, speaking of getting weird, Jamie, we brought you on to talk about a show people seem to not remember. I got to say, because the main character of the show also has a talk show, or had a talk show that was named almost the exact same thing. It's hard to Google this show, but we
I
brought
think
you
the
on to talk-
brain's natural defense is to try to block it out.
Yes, that's right. We brought you on to talk about Ellen.
Not the talk show Ellen, but the sitcom Ellen.
Exactly. And
Well, I
apparently
think it's
the
called-
talk show was the Ellen Show.
Is
This one's
that
just
called the Ellen DeGeneres Show or just the Ellen Show?
It's Ellen, but the original title of the series was These Friends of Mine.
No, I
But-
mean the current show is called the Ellen DeGeneres Show,
yes, the Ellen DeGeneres Show. I thought it was the Ellen Show.
where she
One or the other.
shouts at the staff and then dances around for 5 minutes and then conducts a regular interview like everybody else.
Yes. And then, brings up Portia de Rossi, or are they still together? I don't know. Bees. Sorry. That's a Arrested Development joke for all you people out there that don't follow my brain's neural
Crickets.
patterns. Ellen is an American television sitcom that aired on ABC from March of 94 to July of 98. It stars Ellen DeGeneres as the title character of Ellen Morgan, a neurotic bookstore owner in her 30s. So we can relate.
When you read that, it just makes me cringe.
But I mean, that was the show.
I know, but I just imagine sitting like at that pitch meeting, like, okay, she's a neurotic bookstore owner. It just
Because we didn't have enough neurotic characters in the 90s, sitcom characters in the 90s. We need another neurotic
I just think
30-something.
every pitch idea sounds like garbage. It just sounds so trite and horrible, but like some of it works, It's just this show sucks.
I mean, even worse is the title of the series was originally These Friends of Mine, which was kind of confusing because NBC had a series called Friends that came out around the same time. I don't know if you're familiar with
I
Friends.
think the 90s people really wanted, people must have been really lonely because it seems like all of the sitcoms coming out were about neurotic friends. And people loved it, and I think maybe because people were freaking lonely, they didn't have any friends. So
Can we blame that on
Did
Seinfeld? Did Seinfeld start that, or it's a show about nothing?
And what's the deal with airport food or airline food, I should say?
Just friends doing day-to-day things. The series was the first in the U.S. with the main character to come out as gay, which Ellen Morgan did in 1997 in the Puppy episode, which we talked about on season 1 of Namely 90s. And it received a great deal of media exposure and ignited controversy and prompted ABC to place a parental advisory at the beginning of each episode after that season 3 finale.
Meanwhile, you can flip over to cops and they're just beating some guy into the ground.
Yeah,
That's fine.
The Jerry Springer show. That's fine. That's okay.
Someone gets hit with a
oh my
folding
god,
chair.
a lesbian character. Put a parental advisory on that.
Well, ABC also had NYPD Blue, where they showed someone's butt once.
Wow, progressive.
Mm-hmm. It was crazy. It was, I think they say the S word, and that's what the South Park episode where they say the S word 167 times is based off of that NYPD Blue episode. Anyway, do any of you actually remember this show from back then? I mean, Jamie, you were the one that picked it.
Yeah, I do, because I can't say that I was a teenager at the time, and I can't say that I was a regular watcher of Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the cool things about 80s and 90s television is it was episodic.
Right.
So you could watch this sometimes and you could still be okay. You weren't following any kind of major story arc. So I do remember this show. It's interesting because when we watch, I haven't seen this particular episode, and if I have, it's been probably since it aired a trillion years ago, whenever it came out, 1994.
Mm-hmm.
But it starts out, she's on a date with a guy, and I was like, wait a minute, I thought Ellen Morgan was a lesbian in this show. But then I remember, all right, she started out as kind of this desirable lady that all the guys just couldn't get enough of for the first few years. Like,
that felt very forced to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it was, obviously.
It was. But she was like straight as an arrow for the first 2 or 3 years in this show. And I remember the big controversy coming out when she's like, "Oh, I'm gay, Ellen DeGeneres. I'm gay. I'm a lesbian. And by the way, my character's gay now too."
Mm.
And it was like, oh my goodness, what is going on here? It's so funny to look back at that and see like what a hoopla it caused, because now it's like, shoot, man, every kid's show has a gay character now. It's like, it's not even a thing anymore. It's very, like, there's gay characters all over the place, but back then it was a huge.
It was like,
deal.
somebody think of the children.
Yeah. But when I first started this episode, I was a little confused because I'm like, why is she on this date with this guy? Why does this guy so into her? Oh, right.
Yeah.
The first few years she was straight as an arrow.
It felt like they wanted her to be like Jennifer Aniston, but she just isn't. So it just isn't believable that she's this so desirable. She's beating.
She's the quirky best friend character that guy.
Well, yeah, and she owns a bookstore coffee house, because that's a very 90s thing, right? That's a very hip thing.
She's Meg Ryan and You've Got Mail.
Oh, yeah. So you expect me to believe she's beating guys off with a stick, but that can mean two different things.
Maybe she is.
Oh, gosh.
My mom watched this, so I watched it with her. But like I could not tell you anything about this show other than Ellen was in it, and Laura Dern was her the girl she came out to. And then that's all I really remember. But then upon watching it, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the bookstore, and if I feel like the bookstore changed from season 1 to season 2, because I recall it being like a smaller space that they were in previously, but that might just be my memory failing me, or a different show. I remember the portly man, Joe.
Yeah, I remember him more than anybody.
Yeah, because I always thought that was like the guy that plays Dennis Nedry in Jurassic Park, or
Newman in Seinfeld.
Thank you. But it's not. It's just like he has that energy. And then I barely remembered the redhead friend. I definitely didn't remember the nice guy friend. And
Adam.
Yes, Adam, was that his name?
Is that the really pale guy?
Yes.
It kind of looks like the one guy from Star Trek, but I don't know which guy that is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, and then they all like, all the guys had like that long medium length hair.
Long 90s hairdo.
What a travesty.
Yeah.
Gosh.
I just got a haircut the other day.
Yeah, I think I watched this show or episodes of it, but just like our church when we were growing up, when it went gay, my parents stopped going. I kid you not, that actually happened. Not that I condone that, but that did happen when I was a child.
Sidebar, was that the one where our 6th grade science teacher was on the news being interviewed about going to that church? Nope. Okay.
I don't think so, but it yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Yeah. I mean, because let's see, we've brought you on for, it was two guys, a girl, and a pizza place for the first year. And last year we did Married with Children. It's a shifting target on what we're bringing you on to talk about, Jamie.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed about, like, last year we did the pizza one, and it's this pizza place, and that's the place, right? That's the cool place where all the hip characters go. And this had that same thing where they have their apartment, which is kind of cool and hip, but she owns the coffee house bookstore, which is a very 90s thing for television. Like, Friends used to hang out at the coffee house, and Ellen owns this coffee house bookstore. And it reminds me of the 90s. I was a teenager in the 90s, and seems like everybody's aspiration was to own a coffee house bookstore or to be a circus clown, or like, people didn't want to actually grow up. They wanted to do cool hip things. They didn't want to actually, like, do hard things. They wanted to drink coffee and read books and be hip. Or go to the pizza place.
It shifted away from the bar because they're like, oh, Cheers ran for 11 seasons. We can't do another bar.
Also, people become addicted to alcohol.
Yeah.
No, I think
but
the difference
bars may return in like the 2000s. Sorry, go ahead.
The difference to me between like Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place and the Ellen Show is that the characters on Two Guys, a Girl, and Pizza Place and actors had this thing we call likability. Which none of the actors on Ellen had.
And the gal was actually kind of was desirable, right? She's pretty cute, and she's straight for real. And
he was like, what, Ryan Reynolds, the other guy, and then that one chick. Yeah. But still, they actually had likability, and that was the main difference.
Late breaking news. There's Ellen, which is what we watched. The Ellen Show, which was a 2000 sitcom. And then the talk show, The Ellen DeGeneres Show.
So she had another sitcom for like a year?
From 2001 to 2002 on CBS.
She decides to trade the stresses of her fast-track big city lifestyle for the slower pace of her quieter hometown where they hate the gays. No, it doesn't say that.
Oh, it doesn't say that?
No. An internet executive moves back to her small town. This starred Jim Gaffigan. Oh, no. Emily Rutherford, Martin Mull, Cloris Leachman. The list goes on and gets worse.
I've never heard of this.
I mean, that's probably why we had like that at the top where we're like, no, it's the Ellen Show. No, it's the Ellen DeGeneres Show. John
Francis Daly was in one episode. Betty White. Anyway.
Kaylee.
That's an overlooked show for sure. I've never heard of it. Never seen it. That second sitcom.
It had 18 episodes.
But 5 were unaired.
Ooh, boy.
All right. Well, now that we got that cleared up, shall we get into season 2, episode 12 of Ellen, the Christmas show?
The Christmas show.
The Christmas show. It starts, as you said, with we see here at the end of a date. They had gone to see the Eagles, and in concert. Was it the Eagles?
I assumed it was the Philadelphia Eagles.
No,
but you're right. I thought it was the football team, but they don't live in. Well, where do they live?
I do not know the answer to that.
Well, I know it's not
Los
Seattle.
Angeles. Yeah,
because there's a joke about Seattle in there.
Is that way?
I thought it was for some reason. I just imagined it was the Eagle, the Philadelphia Eagles. So yeah, the Eagles, the band makes more sense.
I mean, you wouldn't have had to camp out for Eagles tickets at Christmas.
Like that joke was dated then.
Yeah.
You say that now, and people will be like, "The who?"
No, the Eagles, not the Who. Anyway. The dude camped out for 2 nights after their first date because she mentioned she liked the Eagles. Yeah. And then she just gives him a kiss on the lips and good night, Charlie, or Greg,
Yeah.
whatever.
Greg.
Yeah.
But he's super nice, like awkwardly nice.
Yes.
Cringeworthy nice.
Cringe. I mean, there's a new like toxic. There's the toxic nice guy is a trope that I didn't realize went this far back, but is a more common thing you see in media now. Because the guys that go, but I'm a nice guy, are actually not nice and are terrible people.
Yeah, it's like they're kind of manipulative, you know? It's not good.
And then back in the 2000s, we would call this guy a stage 5 clinger.
Yep.
Would he be called so my son used this word simp. Would he be a simp?
I mean, he was simping on Ellen, but
bruh, this guy's a simp.
I think he's a simp. Is he a simp?
I can see that. I mean, simp has changed so much in the last 5 years or so.
Maybe he's just overly ingratiating.
I'm gonna Google it. A silly or foolish person.
What? No, Urban Dictionary. That.
Yeah, sorry.
That sounds like maybe like the proper dictionary. You need to go
internet
to
slang term describing someone who shows excessive sympathy and attention toward another person. Typically to someone who does not reciprocate the same feelings in pursuit of affection or a sexual relationship with someone who does not prefer your gender. That's just happening in this episode. I know, but that's what's happening in this episode.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, like I
not
would
only
say
is it
simping works here.
Yeah.
So he's a proto simp. Maybe.
Yes.
We're making new words here. This is good.
Yeah.
I like it.
We're still relevant. What was that, Andrew?
I was gonna say, she's like, this guy is creepy and cringeworthy, which like, she's also not into men. So like, this wouldn't.
But her character doesn't know that at this point.
But this guy is so bad. Oh, yuck.
Yeah, he is annoyingly nice.
Yeah, and like. She goes on to say, like, he's the perfect guy and I hate him. Or not in those words exactly, but like, yeah.
Well, it's just like, he also never lets her talk first, which is kind of domineering and gross.
Problematic, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's two different kind of nice guys. There's this guy who's annoying. Like, she doesn't like him because he's so nice, but he's annoyingly nice. Like, he's cheesy and
toxic
and weird. But then there's like the legit nice guy. And a lot of girls don't like the legit nice guy because for some reason they just don't want to be with a nice guy who's actually legit nice. But this guy isn't that. This guy is like, I just want to like, I want to break up with him myself when I was watching the episode. And I'm just watching a 1994 TV episode. I'm like, I want to break up with Greg. This guy drives me nuts.
Yes.
Greg drives me nuts.
I would never call him again and screen all of his calls if I was Ellen. Like, that dude's, he's serial killer nice.
Yeah. So I don't know why she's having such a hard time. I wouldn't have a hard time like that.
Yeah. And then let's see. From there, they establish she's got to break up with him before Christmas, or else she's going to be stuck with him. At least for, as one of her friends says, I got a Corvette for Christmas, and I was with the guy until at least February. So, I think they said if a diamond, you'll have to be with him for 2 weeks. If he gives you an okay gift, another week. And they were still 9 days away from Christmas at this point. Let's see. And then we get to the bookstore subplot where there's a new employee called Stephanie that she hired who has no actual experience in the bookstore, and she kind of just sucks all around as an employee. And then that's either I would say that's the C plot. The B plot is Paige, her redhead friend, tries to get her mom a gift that she won't criticize her for or take offense to because her parents are divorced now. And apparently it's traumatizing to get a gift from your child. Yeah.
Did the writers understand the assignment? Like,
No.
to write jokes? Because I don't think there were any in this show.
I laughed at the tag scene, the ending, the post credit scene or the credit scene.
I didn't get that far. I had like 1 minute, 22 seconds left when I had to close my laptop.
That's fair. The spoiler, well, we'll get to it.
Okay.
But back here where we were, Greg, the guy that she's dating, comes in and is like, I can't wait. I know it's 9 days from Christmas, but I gotta give you the present. And right as she was about to break up with him, and he gives her, I didn't really get a good look at it, but it was something that had a really long inscription on it. Bracelet, maybe.
The
ID
bracelet, but it had a diamond too, which is her birthstone.
Which that's kind of cheating there.
And
right?
he found that out because he had an hour-long phone conversation with her mother. So,
which is insane.
That's pretty red flaggy, don't you think so? Like,
yes.
Now you're not just nice. Now you're stalking, like getting into stalker territory when you're calling my mom. It's kind of weird.
Yeah. So why is he so into this? Like, why does he want commitment? Wasn't the joke in the 90s always like, this guy is afraid of commitment? Like,
that's kind of the rom-com trope, right?
Yeah. This guy is not afraid of commitment.
So
right, and that's why he's creepy and weird.
Like the type of commitment where he kills you and then chops you up into pieces and buries you in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just saying.
I mean, we later learned that he was emotionally scarred by his parents dying in an alley on Christmas Eve, so he became
Batman.
A crime. Yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I get that confused with something else? Yeah, he had, although he doesn't show it, he clearly has some sort of psychological, emotional damage from losing his parents when he was in his 20s.
What you don't know is he killed his parents with a hatchet. That's why.
Yeah. He actually cut the brake lines on their car.
Well, and the whole thing is every time she tries to break up with him, he comes out with something that makes it hard for her to do so. Time after time, she's trying to break up with him. He has a bracelet with a diamond, or he tells a story that his parents died, and she just can't seem to break up with this weird guy.
Mm-hmm. He says, I'm in love with you. Or he tells her that he loves her while she's brushing her teeth and answered the door.
Yeah, she can't kind of,
Yep.
As soon as she put that toothbrush in her mouth, I knew where it was going.
That was pretty lame.
Yeah, who answers the door?
She answered the door, but she's brushing her teeth. She won't be able to break up with him.
I think I already... What was the guy's name?
Greg.
Greg. I already swore once in this episode, so I'm going to do it again. I mean, she could have just been like, take the toothbrush out and be like, hey, fuck you, Greg. Like, get out of here. Like, how hard would that have been?
Yeah.
That's lazy. That's some lazy writing.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, Stephanie, that whole C plot, so she's really bad at being a bookstore girl, because like the customers come up, I'm looking for a cookbook for something, and she's like, that's nice, I'm looking for the coffee, and she's like, I don't care about anybody, I'm just here to hang out. Like, and I don't know, maybe that's a very, to me it seems like kind of a 90s thing where you work at a coffee shop, but you're kind of a slacker. You're really just there to get paid and hang out. And that's what she's there for. And Joe doesn't like it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's also the point that it's a tiny bookstore. Like, hey, why don't you look at the one rack that says cookbooks and choose one? And the other thing about coffee on TV is it's always like drip coffee. Mm-hmm. They're never making espresso. They're just drinking drip coffee.
What is the hell is the truck stop diner?
Yeah.
What's going on here? I paid $5 for this drip coffee.
That's what it feels like. Yeah. It was like there was an episode of Cheers we watched, and Ted Danson's like, let me buy a cup of coffee. And he just like walks behind the bar, grabs the carafe that's clearly been sitting for like 2 days, and pours it into a crappy mug. And they're like, what? That's the coffee? Oh gosh, the 80s.
So
where
uncensored. when Greg gives her the bracelet, she's got to scramble. So Paige hands her the first gift wrap thing she can. She's like, "Hey, I have this for you," and it's a thesaurus. So he's like, "Oh, gee, thanks for the thesaurus." And he looks up, "Oh, I love and dear." And he's looking all these words.
He's like, I can hardly find the words to express my gratitude. I get written for this show.
Haha.
You could have probably been a better writer if you. That's great. That's good.
Ugh, that was cringy. The
problem is people have to think for that joke a little bit.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, he looked up the word happy, and then he just kept saying happy, joyous.
Yeah, he kept saying all these different words.
Saccharin.
But then, so the new girl keeps calling Joe Slim. He's not Slim, by the way. He's anything but. So he's getting really annoyed with her.
Yeah, I'm just big boned. Sorry.
But then one day he's like handing out cookies and is in a super good mood to customers, and everybody's like, "Wow, Joe is so great." Because it turns out he and that girl Stephanie got together.
Wow, chicka, wow, wow.
What?
Yeah, it didn't see that one coming, quite honestly.
I didn't see that coming. Yeah. But then they have this weird back and forth where they get jealous of each other and fight.
Which, in the middle of the bookstore, which not a professional, not the most professional thing to do at your job.
But that's why Ellen had to say, "Thank you for watching the new play we have. We have a new play. It's a drama."
that was a good cover. Yeah, was that. Did it feel like they were just trying to give Joe something to do in this episode? Or someone?
Yeah. It didn't feel integral to the story, which was weak in itself. But
yeah. And because he was because the B plot was Paige trying to figure out what she's going to give her mom.
But there's never really a payoff to that.
No, well, there wasn't a payoff to anything in this episode.
No, really. But she finally gives her mom a rice cooker, and she's pissed off in the closet because she's like, "You just really remind me that your dad left me for a Vietnamese woman." She's like, "Well, what about the globe? Oh, the globe with Vietnam on it? You're trying to remind me of this?"
That was pretty good. And then, why couldn't you give me a turkey baster like your sister did? Which is what someone suggested.
I think Ellen suggested giving her a turkey baster. That's really what would have. That I'd say the B plot was, if anything was funny in this episode, probably the B plot.
The turkey baster has to be the most useless kitchen thing you could possibly need.
I mean, as a single woman, yeah.
You only use it one time a year, and I don't even.
Frankly, you don't even need it for the turkey. So what the hell's the point?
No, you don't need to baste your turkey.
I spatchcock my turkey.
I just let it go and make that skin crispy. You don't need a turkey base.
Yeah, it's funny. We had Thanksgiving this year, and we went to our my family's house, and it was pretty good. And then the next night, it was like the mid-afternoon. We look at each other like, "You want Thanksgiving dinner again?" And I went out to the store and found like a turkey breast and roasted it up. And we had Thanksgiving 2.0 the next night.
I was wondering what happened there.
Well, speaking of family, Ellen goes to Greg's family place. You want to talk about cringe? Have you guys ever been to a family like this? Like, have you ever had a friend, you go to their family and they're just really just super wholesome and kind of over the top, kind of wholesome? Have you ever
Thankfully not.
Yeah, no, my friends are terrible.
This is our favorite trope though. Just sudden, unexpected bursting into song. Like it wasn't like they were just regular dialogue and then started singing, but it was like it just cut to the next scene and then they just began singing.
The 12 Days of Christmas.
No one does that. By the way, no one does that. No one sits with their whole family in the living room and sings the 12 Days of Christmas with each person taking a turn for the different things.
Also, they started at 12.
Yeah.
Because Ellen would have had to sing 5 at least 7 times.
Oh, yeah.
Up to that point. right? Because you start with the first day of Christmas, and then you work your way up to 12 with each generation.
You're right.
And that would have taken the entirety of the show. So they didn't go. They didn't go for that.
They just started with 12, and then Ellen.
The one flaw in an otherwise perfect episode. No.
True.
No.
But I didn't realize it until just now.
Earlier, by the way, I get Brandon's notes ahead of time, and we've gone way past it, so I had to go back to it because I saw it and just I don't know if you saw me laughing off mic for pretty hard. At one point, Ellen says the phrase "somebody shoot me," which again, what's funnier than suicide? Just kidding. Dial 988. Anyway, she Brandon's comment says "somebody shoot me" should be the name of the sitcom. I mean, there was Just Shoot Me with David Spade, which was similarly anyway,
I like Just Shoot Me.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
But yeah, that was like half a reference to that and half a reference to this is a terrible episode of the show. But yes, they're singing the 12 Days of Christmas. There's a pause at 5, and then Greg kind of just grabs Ellen and shakes her a little bit so that she would sing the 5 golden rings. And then at the end, they're like, well, that's the first time anyone's ever sung the fifth day of Christmas in 10 years. And it's lovely. Better than Mother could have ever done.
Yeah. we had a moment of silence at number 5 for the last decade. But you're better. They even
your random girlfriend.
Better than Mom. She's better than Mom.
Yeah.
This
is a psycho cult family, dude. I'm sorry.
I wrote that in the notes.
You wrote that in the notes? Yeah, that's a psycho cult family.
Yeah.
And if she had any kind of reservations about breaking up with this guy, the visit to his psycho cult family should have cemented that she really needs to stop seeing this dude. But she doesn't. So I think there's something wrong with her now at this point.
True.
You know what I'm saying?
She's also too nice.
I guess so.
But
she's a closeted lesbian. Like that could be it.
She needs a beard for another season and a half. And then after they were gonna give her the fa la 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 in whatever song that is, Deck the Halls. And they're like, hey, she sings it better than Father could. Which is like, were there jokes of this?
How many more minutes are left? My God.
But thankfully they do the Paige, what's the redheads? Yeah, Paige's mom gift thing. And then it flash forwards to New Year's Eve where she's still trying to break up with the guy. And everyone's trying to figure out who to kiss on New Year's Eve, which not the time to introduce a subplot with 3 minutes left in your episode. As she's like, I can't, she's finally fed up enough to break up with the guy, except everyone's shouting the countdown to New Year's Eve. And so she says, I'm not in love with you. He hears, I'm in love with you. And then I guess she's stuck with him for another year. The episode just ends. The episode just ends.
Boy.
But then the tag, which I said up top, actually made me laugh. It's her wedding day to Greg, and they're at the altar, and she's trying to break up with him still, but is unable to, and gets married to him. And then she wakes up from this nightmare and is like, oh, thank God. And she looks over and sees the wedding dress next to her bed. I still have 12 hours to do this, to break up with him. Yeah. So I laughed. Andrew was unamused. I heard a chuckle from Jamie.
That's funny.
Yeah. Andrew has thoughts.
I felt a little bit self-conscious because we watched an episode of Martin, and that was by far my least favorite thing
you did rank
I've
it
watched
on the bottom. Bottom 5.
And I felt like that was a little awkward. And so now I guess the pressure's off because this is now the worst Christmas episode I've ever watched. Even
Is it?
worse than the Power Rangers.
That was a bad episode.
Yeah, it was worse. But now it's a different problem because it's a show.
I mean, Ellen's already being dragged through the mud, so it doesn't
True.
quite affect it.
And you know, I'm going to say something. This might be controversial. I'm not sure. I don't really care.
Okay.
I wouldn't consider Ellen to be a successful comedian. Like, she did some stand up. She got a sitcom, but like anyone could kind of get a sitcom in the 90s. Yeah. Oh, but the second one doesn't count. And then she does a talk show, but like her deal is she was a comedian, and I just don't.
She dances.
I don't think like as a comedian she was that successful.
I don't think I ever watched her stand up. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, it was like in the 80s.
was it? I had no idea.
Probably. If this show started in 94.
She's definitely most known for her talk show.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, it was a long running talk show. So if anything, she was a successful talk show host.
Yeah. She was a second Oprah.
Yeah.
This show, by the way, won 3 primetime Emmys and had 14 wins for awards in total. And I just think that means that society was just dead wrong about this. This was not good. It went on for 5 seasons.
Laura Dern's in the show for a while as the girlfriend.
That was her fallback. She was in Jurassic Park. She had plenty going on there.
Fair. I mean, I think a lot of it was groundbreaking at the time. Because this was 30 years ago. We have to go to the Wayback Machine of fat jokes and
yeah, but if you're a comedian and you're doing a sitcom and you're only getting notoriety for like being openly gay on TV, like it means as a comedian you have not been that successful. Like you're garnering attention through other means.
Oh yeah, I'm not arguing that.
Oh, sorry, Ellen. But she's also kind of a bitch, I heard.
That's the rumor.
I mean, okay, put the E-tag on this one.
She has a successful talk show, so therefore she has the right to be ? Not really.
Sure, why not?
Yeah.
F the patriarchy, I think. I don't know.
Final thoughts from you, Jamie?
Look, this is very 90s. It's silly now that the whole gay thing is a thing, like, because now it's not even a thing, but back then it was. I don't really like this show either. It's not that good. It's really not that funny. It's loaded with soundtracks, laugh tracks, I guess.
Oh yeah.
There are some bits that are fun though. I think the B plot with the mom, if you've ever had reminds me of my great aunt Gwen. No matter what you do or what you try to do, it always comes back to something negative. Like you give a gift and it's like, oh, is that because I'm getting old? Or yeah, have you guys ever known someone like that? No matter what you do, it always comes back in a negative way, right back in your face, and you just kind of give up.
I'm horrible at gift giving, so I don't even bother.
Yeah, but even in general, you might make a compliment and it just comes right back in your face in a negative way. That's my great aunt, like through and through. So I thought that was kind of fun. There are some good bits. I think the writers had some good bits, but I say mostly it just reminds me of the 90s where you had that kind of Seattle-y coffee culture where people just wanted to hang out at the coffee house and hang out with their friends in a coffee house because they worked there and that's what they did for a living. That was a very 90s thing where unambition was almost kind of the fad. I work at a record shop with my friends. Like, that's cool, right? I think we need more of that in our lives.
Well, and there was no work to be done because all you had to do was pour the drip coffee. Like Starbucks didn't build an empire off of 25-cent cups of black coffee.
Dunkin' no one did though.
But I do feel like Seattle had a big glow up, in like the 90s.
Thanks in part to Frasier.
Yeah, and Friends, although
grunge and
granted, Friends is in New York,
grunge.
But like. Seattle is becoming synonymous with coffee in the 90s with the expansion of Starbucks and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coffee and grunge. Even in this show, they had a little joke. You might have missed it, but Ellen says, "Yeah, we told some guy who had a wrinkled shirt he should go up Seattle because that's where the grunge is."
Mm-hmm.
Like that was because grunge. It reminds me of the fact that grunge was a thing and that it was new and cool for a short time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the long hair, the guy's hair.
Ugh.
That's cringy. That's 90s cringe right there. I think if we ever did that again, it would be bad. So I don't know. I don't love this show. I didn't love this episode, but I'm glad I watched it because it really brought me back to 1994. And it was fun to talk about it.
Yeah. I mean, sorry, Andrew, if I was being contrarian earlier.
No, I don't
also
think you were.
did not enjoy.
It gave me more opportunity to say mean things about Ellen.
I remember liking the show when I was a kid, but probably because more things flew over my head back then, and I preferred watching Friends. If I had to pick between this show and Friends, I would have watched Friends.
Yeah, if you said otherwise, I'd have to come over there and hurt you.
Yeah, but like this episode. As we know, all the Christmas episodes are never the best viewing into a series. This one definitely didn't win any awards, but it was. I am flabbergasted that it made it to its third season, so it could do the gay reveal and then deal with it for 2 more seasons. And
I want to be very clear. I don't like Ellen because I think she's a hack. Like, that's why I don't like her. It has nothing to do with anything else. So before you write those angry blue skies at me, I just want to make that clear.
And that's at Namely 90s at bluesky.social. That's it for this holiday edition of Namely 90s. Thank you to Jamie of the 80s and 90s Uncensored, the 80s and 90s.com, and the 80s and 90s Overlooked for coming on and talking and hanging out with us. Jamie, can you let people know where to find you and your stuff?
Yeah, the 80s and 90s.com. You can find everything there. Podcast is on any major podcast player, but the 80s and 90s.com is where we just as we fall off of social media platforms over time, we kind of keep everything in-house at the 80s and 90s.com. So just go there and you can read my stuff, hang out, make comments. Yeah, it's a little retro place for you.
Fantastic. And as always, you can find us on Instagram and Bluesky and YouTube at Namely 90s with a 90s and tell us how your holidays are going. If you'd like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Namely90s, also with a 90s. And finally, you can contact us through our website, Namely90s.com, but not really. Please subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, Audible, Great Aunt Gwen, Deezer, TuneIn, iHeart, Good Pods, and wherever you get your podcasts from. I'm Brandon. That's Andrew. And thank you one final time to Jamie from the 80s and 90s Uncensored.com and Overlooked. And we'll catch you tomorrow for day 9 of our 12 Days of Christmas Specials 2023.
Thanks for having me on for the tradition, fellas.